so he said, I want a treehouse that's worthy of my wedding day. And so like that's how fancy we're gonna make it. We're gonna go big, crystal chandeliers, oversized bed, like all the things. And he was inspired by love. And it's really cool. We got married there. We had our first look on the treehouse. We started our honeymoon there, and it was so special. He wouldn't let me stay in the treehouse until our wedding. Like it was a surprise. I couldn't see the final thing, until that day. And so if you can imagine, I mean, I was overcome, by that act of love and by the beauty. And then us getting to like start our lives together there really set us off on this path. And we had no idea, like that wasn't even the intention. We were just enjoying it for ourselves. I was going to continue on in the broadcast world, but like what those few days did for us changed everything.
You're listening to Slick Talk, the hospitality podcast, a podcast for those who are in and around the hospitality industry who love, live, and breathe what they do. You can join us for candid and unscripted conversations with hospitality experts and founders as we go deeper into their personal stories while they're sharing their triumphs and trials that got them to where they are today. I'm your host, Will Slickers, and you're listening to an episode of Slick Talk, the hospitality podcast. Now, let's begin. All right, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Slick Talk, the hospitality podcast. I'm your host, Will Slickers, and I'm very excited for this episode for a lot of selfish podcaster reasons. When you get to have an opportunity to have a conversation with someone like Tori, who is going to be my guest today, I think there's a lot to cover, but I'm just excited because we get to geek out. And so, Tori Bolt, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining me today. How are you doing?
Thank you. I'm great. I'm thrilled to be here. Big fan of your podcast. So pumped that we get a chance to talk.
Stop the compliments. It's great. I'm just kidding. Tori, as we do on the show, I love to hear origin stories. I love to hear where it begins. Generally, just Tori, where does it all begin? Where are you from? Tell us your upbringing, kind of what the path was to where we are today.
Yeah, I love that you go all the way back. And it's funny, a lot of people are surprised to know that I am from Southern California. I live in the woods, on a mountain in the woods in Tennessee, and have adopted y'alls and stuff like that. And so people are surprised to know, I grew up about 35 minutes outside of LA, went to school in San Diego, absolutely beautiful place to live. And at the time, I was pursuing a career in journalism, in entertainment, broadcast journalism. So that is the path I was on. I bounced around for work. I was able to take a job in a top 10 market in Houston, which is where I met Seth, actually. We were both on the job. So his band, he's in the band Need to Breathe, for people who don't know. And their band was playing a show in Houston, and I interviewed them before the show, which is kind of hilarious. I love that. That's the way that we met. So we met there. Obviously, flash forward, we got married in South Carolina, which is where he grew up and lived at the time. And I'm covering a lot of ground. Honestly, our love story did happen pretty quickly. Before we had met, both of us had our fair share of singleness and dating. And when we met each other, we were like, yes, like you're it, so it didn't take too long. And we, in the process of us meeting and dating, he was already building a treehouse with his dad. And I was like, man, this guy's so interesting. Who does that? His dad has a construction company. They built the house that that he grew up in. And so he was watching, treehouses become popular, Airbnb become popular, this platform called Instagram become popular, and was like, Dad, we got to build a treehouse. And it took a little bit for him to convince him, but they started on that journey. I think they started on Father's Day of 2015, which is pretty cool. But we met in the process. And so us meeting helped to inform the level of luxury and the bar of excellence, for the treehouse. Because when you think of treehouse, people think of different kinds of things. If you're a visual person, you might think of the Swiss Family Robinson treehouse or a fort in your backyard. You might think of whatever. And so, he said, I want a treehouse that's worthy of my wedding day. And so like
Mm.
that's how fancy we're gonna make it. We're gonna go big, crystal chandeliers, oversized bed, like all the things. And he was inspired by love. And it's really cool. We got married there. We had our first look on the treehouse. We started our honeymoon there, and it was so special. He wouldn't let me stay in the treehouse until our wedding. Like it was a surprise. I couldn't see the final thing, until that day. And so if you can imagine, I mean, I was overcome, by that act of love and by the beauty, and then us getting to like start our lives together there really set us off on this path. And we had no idea. Like that wasn't even the intention. We were just enjoying it for ourselves. I was going to continue on in the broadcast world, but like what those few days did for us changed everything.
Well, I was gonna say not to go backwards too much and kind of oversee the story of love, but one, all the guys listening, I know we have a lot of guys listeners on the show. That is the standard. You got to get, all right, you're like worthy of my wedding day. That's a new one. I'm impressed. Good job, Seth. Good job on that one. But going into your career in journalism, I'm sure there's some kind of tie-in to now creating this hospitality business. Because yes, you can say it's a treehouse business or a glamping business or whatever kind of people want to classify, but you're really in hospitality, whether it's a treehouse or a dome or whatever. With your career in journalism, have you always had like a sense of curiosity and discovery, or what kind of implanted that into you for from the earlier days?
Yeah, I think there is that element of discovery. Even more so just the love of storytelling. I
Mhm.
love being able to highlight people's stories, to hear people's stories. I was always drawn to the good news and people in the
Mm.
community that maybe were overlooked. And so like highlighting those stories is really beautiful. What's cool is that I still get to do that, with our guests. I
Yeah.
get to talk to them, hear their stories. I'll interview our guests sometimes and do testimonial videos, and like that brings me so much joy, and it's a really neat, full circle. I honestly think some of the biggest skills from the journalism world that carry over to what I do now is, and it's nothing like sexy or glamorous. It's just the ability to work fast under a pressure, like a pressure deadline, and like just get things done. Because with the news, ready or not, you're going on air. And so it's like you gotta get your stuff done quickly. And so that's really helped. Um, it's funny, like I am a creative person, and I don't want to like, you know, underplay it, but I'm not the creative genius behind Bolt Farm, and I'm not the designer of Bolt Farm. It's so funny, like the way Seth and I work together. A lot of people are surprised to know this, but he's the designer,
Mm.
and I am the make it happener. It's like if it was just him, it would be one treehouse and big audacious dreams. But I really help kind of reel him in, put the plans on paper, and work that out. But I mean, he's super creative, and the things he dreams up, it blows me away. So he really gets the credit for birthing this dream and everything that we've built since.
Well, I was gonna say that's the main reason because we got introduced. We're gonna give a little shout out here to Justin Ford from Breezeway, but talking to Justin, he was like, "You got to talk to Seth and Tori. Like these are some people definitely in your wheelhouse of get a good episode and do an interview." Um, so because of him, I reached out to you. I was like, "Look, would love to do it," but that wasn't the main reason. I went through your guys' Instagram and then I had that light bulb moment click where I was like, I have seen you guys before. And obviously we'll go into this a little bit later. You guys were featured on Netflix on the vacation rental show that they've put on. I think there are 2 seasons now, or maybe
Yeah.
a third. Can't tell. I don't have opportunity to go on Netflix as much as I used to, but I did recognize you, and I was like, okay, this is special. And I do see through your guys' like Facebook group that I got to jump into just before jumping into the recording, and check out your website and your Instagram. Like you do capture stories. Like that is the cool part that I really love. Like not only do you guys have this like creative vision, but your storytelling. You are capturing the guest experience, and it's not just about Bolt Farm Treehouse. It's about the guests and the moments that happen there. So going into your guys's brand, I really love how you guys pretty much mentioned that this is where you come for the big moments. This is where the big moments happen, and we like to
Mhm.
set that standard. So you got to experience that yourself first. How is that carried over into now displaying that with hundreds, if not thousands, of guests later, going into the big moments with people?
Yeah, man, it makes me so happy. And real quick, I had a full circle moment yesterday. Actually, I had the honor of welcoming and checking in our guests. It's not something I get to do on a daily basis, but yesterday I did, and I mean, I'm telling you, every single person was celebrating a big moment. We had
Mhm.
multiple honeymooners, anniversaries, a birthday surprise. There was a mother-daughter trip. There was a father-son cross-country road trip. It's just like all these things, and I'm just blown away and humbled that they're choosing to make these moments with us. But I think a big reason why we lean into that and why people do celebrate with us is like you said, we started with our own. It's not like we kind of dreamt this up from an office across the country, just, on the computer or whatever, and never saw the place. Like we live, eat, and breathe it. We live on site in a
Mhm.
camper while we're building, while we're under construction. It's part of our process because we're there daily. And we stay in each unit for as long as we can before
Yeah.
we welcome it to the guests, to see like, okay, if we're going to have high standards, like, are we comfortable? Is there everything we need? Is there a phone charger by the bed? Are there
Mhm.
coaster, like all the little things, that we would want? We obsess over those details until the rooms have it because, again, we want to have that highest, worthy of my wedding day. We want to treat every guest experience every single day on that level. And I think it's because we've experienced it ourselves. We drill that in with our team, like people all operate that way. And
Mhm.
I think our guests feel it and they know that they're going to walk into that level of detail and care.
Yeah, and it's when you lead with your why rather than like we were kind of talking about earlier, like lead with the why rather than like the financial aspect. Yes, the financial part can be great. Like we all know this business, whether it's a treehouse or even just normal vacation rental properties throughout urban or other destination markets, that it does pay. There's a reason why it's a business. And um but there is a big differentiator when you can take that why moment and kind of continue to amplify it throughout different guests and couples or trips or whether it's mother daughter, father son, those special things too. Um, so kind of, I want to bring back. You mentioned that you are the operations. You are the let's execute. And Seth is the vision. And I know another friend of mine would say, I've been telling you this for years, Will. You need a visionary and an executioner. That's how you make a great company. So with you two, how does that not only apply into the business, but tell me about your guys' personal lives. Now that you live and breathe this stuff while you're building this out, is that a good balance all the time? Or do you have sometimes where you're like, I need to see the vision more?
I'm laughing thinking of a very, very recent experience. It's so funny. Like, we have an amazing relationship. We love working together. It's not for all couples. I totally get
Yeah.
that. But as passionate as we are, as much as we work, we love sharing those common victories, the common obstacles, all that. So, but we have our different lanes. And obviously, because we're married, we know each other really well and we know
Mhm.
how to communicate best with each other, how to approach things. But even still, and we've been married for like 6.5 years, you default to the way that you're wired. And it was so funny because literally like 48 hours ago, we were talking through something early in the morning, trying to figure out a business, problem to solve, decision to make. And Seth is, painting the options of the picture like he does. And I kind of go into the productive paranoia of like, well, this is why it breaks down and why we shouldn't do it. And he called me out. He's like, can you just sit with me for a few minutes in the like how this can be possible before you start like
Yeah.
tearing it apart? And I'm like, yeah, like I get that. You need that space. But I'm like, I also don't want to waste your time and BS you if I know it's not gonna work. So it's like it's a balance. And I think it's understanding the way people work differently. I don't know if you're familiar or if you're listening, if you're familiar with predictive index. That's something that we started using
Yeah.
like a year or so ago as a team. And I was kind of skeptical at first, but man, it is so good. And like we use it, within our team. Um, and even it helps, Seth and I in these moments to know, their differences and kind of how to navigate that, and making sure that you're playing to each other's strengths. I think it's normal to drive each other nuts every now and then, and we definitely do, but
Yeah.
we bounce back quick, and we appreciate what each other brings to the table, knowing they didn't have that. If Seth wasn't bringing his ideas to the table, if you're looking at our trajectory, it would have been much lower, probably much safer, much smaller. Um, but having the boldness to dream big, you end up here. Without your productive paranoia people and your detail people, your risk is much higher. So you need them too, even though they probably drive you nuts.
Yeah, I was gonna say I feel like I'm a good balance between you and Seth, where I'm like very visionary, but then I'm like, well, logistics wise, I'm a very literal person. So when people try to joke with me, sometimes I'm like, well, actually, that doesn't make sense because and they're like, it was a joke. We're joking. Calm down. Um, but I want to also kind of uncover. So you get married. You're a journalist. You're going into broadcasting and journalism career, and Seth is doing his music thing. Life is great. You get married, you see this beautiful tree house, and you experience the amazing memories you guys were able to create and start off your new life together. Now, here we are. However, you said 6.5 years later, you are at multiple tree houses, multiple domes. I saw a mirror cabin, and so like all these things. So we'll cover all those. But what was the, I guess, turning point where you guys were like, you know what, this is it. Like, we need to make this a reality. Like this, what we experienced, we need to do it 100 times over. Um, Tell me about that moment.
Yeah, that moment was actually on our honeymoon. It was taking the
Shoot.
time.
Okay.
It truly was, like, it happened that fast, and I know not everyone gets clarity that fast. What a gift. But we just realized how important environments are. They shape you. And the
Mhm.
environment that we were in allowed us the room and the space to be present, to be with each other, to dream. We were very inspired because of the beauty around us, not only in the treehouse, but also nature.
Mhm.
And we just dreamt about our lives. We're like, gosh, we want to live lives on purpose. What does that look like? And everything we kind of just brainstormed and wrote down. We were like, well, we want our future children to have an upbringing like Seth did, in the country and in the woods, and serving people, and all these life lessons that they can have by being in this environment. All those things we just kind of brainstormed, and all the arrows were pointing to creating more places like this. And so it was literally on our honeymoon that we didn't know how we were going to make it work or what it would look like, but we knew we wanted to make places like that treehouse available to as many people as we could touch as possible. And so it took, let's see, maybe like 7 or 8 months for me to quit my job, as we
Wow.
kind of game planned. So I quit my
Yep.
job and we hunkered down. Obviously, first time working from home. I remember Seth set me up like a little folding table with like a tapestry on top of it. And that was my first office. And we set out to buy land, and gosh, we learned an immense amount of lessons, in that first year of leaning into this. And also learning the economies of scale. You're like, wow,
Yeah.
construction is expensive. It takes a long time. Land is the most expensive asset in what we do. So how do you maximize that? It's like, well, you buy this piece of property, you can build one tree house, you could build four, you could build 10. And based on your goals and where you are, there are different numbers and sweet spots. And we definitely took steps. We started with the one tree house. Our next property we built four. And then the next property during the pandemic, we built 10, tree houses and domes. And you just learn, you're like, okay, you're gonna have the work, you're gonna have the pain points. Let's see if we can. And we just keep pushing ourselves to the limit. That's where Seth comes in. We're like, how many could we do without growing too fast, without losing that feel? Because it is a very bespoke feel that's really important to us. But yeah, that's kind of how that ramped up over the last 6 years.
So it was quick. It was really quick. And was your honeymoon just at the treehouse, or did you guys start at the treehouse and then go somewhere else for the rest of the honeymoon?
Yeah, so we were at the treehouse for the first 3 or 4 days, and then we went to Tulum, Mexico,
Okay. Yep.
before it the pandemic totally changed it. I'm gonna make myself sound like a grumpy old person, but we went back this year to kind of revisit that, and oh my gosh, it is not the sleepy beach town it once was. I was heartbroken. I was so sad. But yeah,
I
back
lived
then.
in oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. You're good.
I was say I lived in Cancun for a month of March, and I went to Tulum to because I heard all of the rave about it, and then I was a little disappointed. I was like, dang, it's not as quiet as a lot of people like that went early pre-COVID. It definitely got a little ramped up pretty quick. So
It did. It did. Yeah, but yeah, we were in Tulum in another very quiet eco nature space. Like they didn't have, electricity. They came in every night and lit candles. Like it was just amazing. And we
Mhm.
just got to continue to dream, and that's where the whole vision for Bolt Farm started.
So you come with this game plan, you quit your job 7 or so months later, you you get this like remote workstation set up for you. And tell me about the land. I'm actually curious. So is this all on the same or near the same property where you guys had your honeymoon your first few nights there, or is this completely separate and you had to start from scratch?
Completely separate. Yeah, we started
Okay.
from scratch. So the treehouse where we honeymooned in is on the property where Seth grew up. My in-laws still live there. It's a beautiful farm and property. And that was kind of our springboard, but it was really important for Seth and I to have something that was wholly ours, and to, you know, understand the process from dirt and day one, So we knew that we wanted to be in Tennessee, and we knew that we wanted to be on a mountain because you just when you're on a mountain, you feel your spirit lift. Like you just
Mhm.
feel so good. Like, when you're on top of the world, you feel on top of the world. So that's what we were on a mission to find. And it took months. I mean months. And I'm less patient than Seth. I'm like ready to do it. I'm like, let's go. It's been 4 months, let's make a decision. But we were really clear on what we wanted, and we weren't finding anything that was exactly it, and with that kind of investment, we just weren't willing to settle. And
Mhm.
so we kept looking and looking, and I'm glad we did, because in June 2020 we found this spot in Tennessee. We're about 40 minutes outside of Chattanooga in a beautiful town called Whitwell. So we're
Okay.
on Whitwell Mountain, and yeah, I mean, we just fell in love with the area when we first came here. I had no poker face with a realtor. I was like, all right, I'm so done, because this is beautiful. And it was 30 acres or so that they were selling. We could only afford a portion of that, and they were kind enough to let us buy that. And so that's what we did and where we started. But what's cool is, flash forward today, we've been able to expand.
Mhm.
We now have 55 acres and no neighbors, basically.
Jeez.
It's crazy. So we'll be here. Like our big picture vision is to continue building places like this across the country. But we have so much that we want to do, even just right here in Tennessee. So
Yeah, no, it's been super cool to watch because I've been following the Instagram and checking out your guys' story throughout, like leading up to this interview, and it's super cool. And one of the things I'm just very very passionate about, and any of the listeners that have tuned in prior to this episode would know, I am all about destination creation. So not having to be like, okay, I'm going to go to Miami and start a vacation rental company, or I'm going to go to I'll even use where I'm from, Seattle, and saying, I'm going to create a vacation rental company all focused about Seattle and all that stuff. But really going to a place like I love that you said from the dirt to the trees, like you are going to create this destination as itself. So I guess you weren't expecting to do this when you got married. You guys lay out your vision, your plan for your lives, and what you want to leave behind for generations to come. From what it sounds like, now you're creating this destination. You have 55 acres. Give us some insight of what that's like, either on a day to day or just really like you are starting from scratch. And a lot of people don't have that opportunity because they usually acquire a home or a company that's already been operational. You guys are really putting this to, creation. So, um, yeah, give us some like insider destination making mindset scoops that you can.
Yeah. I mean, I'm with you. I think it's really special to create a destination. That being said, it is risky, if you're going to try to get people to come, to, you know, less popular areas or whatever, travel further to get there, it's got to be worth it. And
Yeah.
so I think that's something that we definitely are mindful of. Um, in our case, nature is the star of the show. If you've seen pictures of the property, we're on this beautiful bluff with like gorgeous rock faces, stunning views. And when we first started out, the first months that we spent on the property, we were tent camping. And I'm like,
I
Seth,
love it.
is this another test? But no, we would tent camp on the weekends while we were like closing on the property. And we were just like, if a property can be amazing, if you're in a tent and an air mattress, then then you're in the right destination. Like you've created the destination, because then anything you build will just be that much more breathtaking for the guest. And so yeah, I think just making sure it's worth it. For us, it's the nature is the star. But then we also go really big on luxury. We have all these luxury amenities. Each dome, treehouse, mirror cabin, they have their own hot tub and fire pits and all the things. We just like held nothing back because we know it takes effort to get here.
Mhm.
And we want our guests to feel like they don't want to leave once they're here. This is not a vacation where you stay busy and you have this packed itinerary. And some people do that. Like it's tough because Chattanooga is such an adventure town and there's so much to do. But you could be absolutely content just staying here. And for us, that's the goal. The home is the experience where you have everything you need, for a few days of restful, intentional time right here. And I think for us, that's the goal. That's the beauty of it. It's like the art of slow living. And if you're staying at Bolt Farm, you come knowing that, and you come with that expectation. And we prime our guests, in the pre-arrival communication that they get between booking and arrival is getting them ready, like, hey, get ready to put your phone on, do not disturb if you can, and be ready
Yeah.
for this. And, like just different little elements that kind of prepare you mentally so that you don't just get caught up in having another busy vacation.
Well, I saw in the Facebook group somebody posted they signed up for the private chef experience,
Oh,
and
yeah.
I loved that. I was like, how? Not only did I see like you guys have pizza ovens and all these like cool amenities like the hot tub you were talking about too, but a private chef, like just like if I'm not, so I'm single, so any lady listeners out there, just FYI, just kidding. But like I'm single, but like I'm imagining like, okay, if I were to go out like on a weekend away with a significant other or partner, you know, like how special would that be to just like, okay, like not only are you captured by nature's beauty, but then you don't have to cook. Like you got me sold. So how I guess the question leading up to this for you is, you know, you come from journalism background. How how did you learn this hospitality ropes, like anticipation of guest needs? And like you're talking about prepping them for what they're about to experience. And this is like very much trained stuff that you're talking like from what my background with Marriott, I got very much trained that way. Um, so you just starting out the gate with Seth and these ideas, that's so unique and not the normal route, I would say. So I guess kind of walk me through that. How does that mindset happen, and how did you get into that position where you're able to like really think that far ahead?
There's a lot of Googling involved. Uh, no, I'm kidding. Well, that's actually true for for certain things in like construction, but no, I mean, I appreciate that because yeah, we neither one of us have a formal background or training in
Yeah,
hospitality. I think it comes from two things. I think one is just that innate care and love for people. You're caring for them. These are your guests. You want to make sure they have an amazing stay. And so like you have to genuinely care. And we have an amazing team. They all care and our guests feel it. Like people get shouted out by name all the time, because of that love, that Southern hospitality, but it's more than that. So I think that is the core. And that will guide your decisions, having that true care, but then also being well traveled, like, and especially Seth, his band has toured all over the country. They've toured in Europe, in Australia, And I mean, they've been able to experience it all, the good and the bad,
Mhm.
but
Yeah.
some of the best experiences. And once you see that, you take these little things away and you're like, that really stuck with me. That was special. And you keep that and you curate that. And so I think it's important. It's part of what we do actually with our team. Is like if we ever have like a last minute opening, we host our housekeepers, we host our frontline workers, we host them. And part of it is to be, generous. It's a gift to say, I appreciate you, I see you. But part of it is training. It's like,
Yeah.
you're going to experience this, because if you haven't experienced it, you don't know how to give it. And so I think that's really important. Hey, it's also pretty nice R&D vacations. You're like, oh, this is research. We got to do it. We got to go big and check out their spa. So
100%. It's my favorite part of the whole industry. Anytime I have an opportunity to do, oh, it's really destination research. I'm just checking it out. It's work. It's work related. I'm only getting a massage for 90 minutes the whole time I'm there. I promise. So it's really the big perk. Well, I know we kind of mentioned earlier too, the the as seen on Netflix. So walk me through, because I know for sure there's no way I would have thought it. Like, all right, I'm gonna create this amazing destination, and then I'm gonna get shown all over. I can't call it TV, but we're gonna be shown to millions of viewers, who potentially could walk into the show and see what you guys have built. So tell me about that experience. Was that one as fun as it looked on the show? Two, did that change the trajectory of what you guys have built already in that point, and probably maybe faster than you expected?
mm. Yeah. So to answer your first question, it was a blast. It was so fun. We had the pleasure of working with really great people. Funny story that I've actually never even told anybody. So the day before filming, we're there. We were actually, so we filmed in South Carolina in those original tree houses, but we were already living and building in Tennessee. So we came in for that filming and wanted to prep everything, make sure it was just sparkling. All the plants were pristine and all the things. And I got there a day before Seth because of his, I think he was playing a show. And I'm in the woods and I'm trying to there was like a malfunction with our gate on that day. So I'm like in the woods with I took like a fishing line, tied it around the gate and was trying to like magically open it, to give it that like beauty shot, whatever.
Mhm.
And apparently, because I was pretty deep in the woods, like to get this shot and like prep this or whatever, I got bit by something. I think a spider. I don't know.
Yeah.
But like the next day, my foot and my ankle was so swollen. It was like the size of a cantaloupe. It was like Will Smith and Hitch. It was so bad.
Yeah.
Like, you've got to be kidding me. My luck, because like we were going to be on part of it too, like interacting with the host as part of the episode layout, and I couldn't even get my shoe on. It was so swollen. I was like icing it. I was like, you're kidding me. So we were like all smiles on camera, and on the whole, like we had a great experience, but I was in a world of pain. Ended up going to the hospital to get like a steroid shot. Like it was horrible. And it was just so funny looking back, like the timing that has never happened to me before or since. But like that day, I'm like hobbling around. I mean, a mess, totally useless. So that's kind of my LOL memory from the whole experience. But it was a great time. It's crazy how much they pack in a short amount of time.
Mhm.
And unlike most of their episodes, they were filming in two tree houses. So it was like two tours, two experiences. And man, those people hustle. They were long days. Like it was awesome. And it's funny, this is part of my journalism background. I think like when we weren't on camera, which was we were on camera for like 5% of it, right?
I
I
was
put
gonna say, well, even just watching the episode, I was like, man, they were barely on.
I
Like
know,
you,
we did a lot more. I'm like, "Come on, we didn't make the cut." No. It's not about us, but when we weren't on camera, I definitely went into, like, director mode of, like,
yeah,
everything they see, they can film, so, like, does it look perfect? So, like, this is the level of ridiculous or of commitment that we are. I was, you know, like, filling and foaming the outdoor tubs with bubble bath so that it would look fresh and not, like, sad. If you leave a bubble bath for, like, 30 minutes, it starts looking sad.
Oh yeah.
That was like I was like tending to the tub so that we were ready, and you have to be that way. I think whether it's on camera or you're welcoming your guests, like that level of all in, make it perfect, it matters. So those are some of the yeah, we worked our butts off that weekend for sure, but it was absolutely worth it, and I would do it again in a heartbeat.
So did that create like a huge ripple effect for your guys after it aired? I would say like obviously there's some time for production and all that, but afterwards did that just change the game, or was it like okay, we can continue to go at the pace that we were on, and but just have the credibility of as seen on Netflix and use that in the sense of leveraging the concept you guys are building out.
Yeah. In all honesty, this might be surprising or underwhelming, but it was a little underwhelming.
Okay.
I know that like we became friends with the producer, and for other hosts, it absolutely changed their lives because no one had heard of them, and now here they are. I think there were a couple of things that played into that. One was we were already building some great momentum and a name for ourselves before that, which is incredible. Um, and then two, if you watch the Netflix episode, that was filmed in Charleston.
Mhm.
Um, and I'll give you like the 2 minute story on that to not make it long, but it was just interesting timing. Like we had not built yet in Tennessee. And I'm kind of bummed because we filmed in Charleston. That's that was the first property that Seth and I bought on our own, and where we
Mhm.
built, the 4 tree houses. And unfortunately, as we were finishing construction and welcoming our first guests, the island we were on adopted these anti Airbnb laws. And we ultimately had to basically like rethink our business and close down our existing business. I mean, we didn't see it coming. Earlier I was talking about all these lessons we learned. This was
Yeah.
it. Just because they don't have regulations at the time doesn't mean there aren't some on the horizon. And so, like, if you're a host or thinking about hosting, shoot, that was one of the biggest lessons we learned is make sure that you're protected, not only now, but in the future, that you're building in these friendly areas because we were not and we didn't know it. And so what was a bummer was, we spent maybe a year and a half, 2 years like fighting for our business and to be able to try to change the laws or make it work. We couldn't. So all we could do was monthly rentals, which
Mhm.
staying in a treehouse for a few days, amazing. Staying in a treehouse for a month, kind of challenging. It's like
Yeah.
it's not for everyone. I mean, we did it. We lived there for 2 years in a treehouse, but it's hard and it changed everything. So, in all honesty, it was a bummer that we have this huge stage of Netflix and all we could offer were monthly rentals, which was not what we ever set out to do because we're trying to reach as many people as we can. So we kind of felt like we got the big stage and had our hands tied behind our back, at the same time. So, you know, painful lessons learned, but that's part of it. It's not all glam, it's not all like success stories. There's a lot of hard stuff, but we ended up selling that property.
Mhm.
Learned some amazing lessons that we'll never ever forget. And like you said, the Netflix credibility has been helpful because there are so many people entering the glamping space. You don't know who's just figuring it out and who's been around for a little while. And I think that Netflix stamp definitely gives people confidence that, okay, these guys know what they're doing.
100%. And it's I love that you said, just because it's not regulations now doesn't mean there won't be or it can't like be. So setting
Yeah.
that standard early in your business is like good on you guys for having like at least you're going in with it, not just saying we're just gonna throw up a dome and say it's a glamping site. You put a lot of thought and time and energy into this whole experience. Now, I'm curious for you guys today, as you're looking at the whole resort basically that you guys are building. Um, how has that changed? Are you guys just listing on one platform like Airbnb, or I see you have a book direct kind of like website. So I'm just kind of, I'm a big technology guy. I love all the software and tech on the back end. So I'd love to know kind of how that shifted for you guys as you went to 2.0 of the Bolt Treehouse.
Yeah, it's definitely been an evolution. We started out just by posting on Airbnb to see if anyone would come or care or whatever, and we were shocked with the response to that. It was incredible. Um, Today, we book 97% of our bookings directly through our website, which is pretty
That's impressive.
incredible. I know. I'm like, I'm really proud. I mean, and it took time, it takes time to build that trust, um, and that confidence. And I'm thankful that we have. That being said, we still advertise on other platforms, or at least are open to in the future because it's a good way to get discovered. But I'm grateful that we don't rely on it. And this isn't to throw shade because those
Sure.
platforms gave us our start, but guests have to incur so many more fees, and you don't have the ability to communicate with your guests in the same way. Like there's this data curtain. And so it just makes it kind of challenging for hosts like us who want to really take it far and wish them happy birthday a year after they've stayed. You lose that
Yeah.
ability with third party platforms. And so, um, I think it's good to have yourself out there and diversify. But, I think, in my opinion, the more you can go direct with your people, everyone saves, everyone wins.
Yeah. No, I have a personal and selfish endeavors in Book Direct as we just hosted the Book Direct show in Miami this year. So I'm very impressed. Yeah, you make this job of podcast hosting really easy today on this episode. So
All right.
um this is incredible. For I would say, to I don't know, for the listeners out there, it sounds really great, right? Like this Instagram perfect type of scenario, right? You're building a destination outside of maybe like the regulation stuff. Um, what are some other things maybe that you didn't expect or anticipate starting this that really is now become like this is why we do what we do because this happened or this could have happened even.
Mm, yeah. Dang. There are so many things that go into what we do in this whole business that are not glamorous, hard,
Yeah.
all the things. I think, yeah, obviously the zoning regulations was like the really big one for us. But another thing that was kind of a light bulb, a mentor of ours, we were talking, this was like a year ago, and we're like, man, we just feel like we're working so hard and like it never stops. What's the deal? What are we missing? And he's like, well, you guys aren't running one company, like you're running three. If you're building from the ground up, you have a construction and development company, you're hosting guests, you have this hospitality company, and you have a brand, a sales and marketing, a brand company. It's like, no wonder you're busy. Like you're running three things. And so, different people will have different goals. Some, like, if you're able to or want to outsource operations, great. Same with construction or development, great. For us, it's important for us to be involved in every phase of it and really
Mhm.
own that guest experience from the way it's built to the way that they're welcomed. But man, it is a lot of work. Like construction is way more work than I ever imagined. And then people are, and like we're so blessed with an incredible team. But as you know, if you've been here, like it's hard to find them. It's really hard to
Mhm.
find hardworking people, um, who share that passion, who share that love for people, who are willing to, like, you know, work as if it's their business, because that's what's kind of required on some days, and so we've been really fortunate. But that being said, like I feel like recruiting and onboarding is almost a job in itself. And I was like, wow, I never knew that I'd spend like a good bulk of my days on this element of it. But without your people, without your team, you know good luck. There's no way we could do this on our own. And so that's such a huge our team is a huge foundation, absolutely. But nurturing them, developing them, challenging them, being there for them, um, it's it's all in. And so I feel like that's one of the things that you would never guess or think when you just see on Instagram. It's like, I wonder what people think my day looks like. Maybe oh, she's just walking around filming on Instagram and gonna do this or that. But in reality, like unglamorous, I'm at my desk for like 8 hours and I'll get out and do these other things here. But a lot of times, even though this sounds cliche, like what you see on Instagram truly is just the icing on top. And there's so much, all the unsexy stuff, that goes into making that possible. But it's important. And I think that's what, honestly, I think that's what sets us apart, is the willingness to do the not so fun things, each day, no matter whether we feel like it or not, just showing up. Because if you're going to do this at scale, obviously it's different if you have, one or a couple, but if you're going to do it to the level that we are, it's just, it takes a lot of discipline for sure.
Well, I think you said it just there. Showing up is the hardest part, to be honest. I've had a lot of failed businesses. I've had some so far successful run, and a lot of my friends that start something or that don't finish something, I always tell them it's like honestly, it really does like it's showing up on the crappy days, it's showing up on the great days, it's showing up when you lose, it's showing up when you win, all that stuff. Like it does really, really matter. So the consistency of that just being, very much like, all right, we're in it to win it, like you said, all in.
Mhm.
Um, and so tell me what's next. For I love podcasting because we get to have amazing conversations like this, but I'm also a visual person. So anyone listening, their Instagram is tagged in the show notes. Grab it, go look at it. But there's so much that is capturing with what you guys are building in this destination. So, as you're scaling and building out this, I'll call it like a resort of tons of different properties and experiences. What can people look forward to in 2023?
Yes. Oh, so many things, and I'm thrilled. So we're built right now. We're building 4 more honeymoon tree houses, because that's the one where we started our honeymoon, and it's the one that was featured on Netflix. So it's everyone's favorite, and it's always booked. So we're building 4 more right on the cliffside, like the most breathtaking views. They're going to open in spring of 23, and we're going to keep building from there. I think I can share this. I don't think we've shared it anywhere else, but we're also, as you said, we're kind of crossing over into this resort land where it's not just there's a vacation rental on this property. It's a
Yeah.
community, it's a whole place. So we are going to be building this clubhouse, like this beautiful barn community center where people can enjoy, spa treatments. We're still fleshing out what the food looks like. We love the private chef meals, and we want to see if we can make something more readily available to all of our guests, like light bites. But I'm so excited to have the space. A lot of guests have talked about that. Like people do come to kind of get away from it all, but some travelers want to meet other travelers, or, people who come with their team for offsites, they need those spaces. And so we're going to have some like board meeting rooms, all these phenomenal areas in this clubhouse. And so that's going to be a big focus for 2023.
Well, just imagine not only do you get to see all of the stories of individuals that are staying at different tree houses or domes or mirror cabins, but now they get to talk to each other about those moments and experiences. That's gonna be like 10x of what you guys are seeing. I guarantee it. Like there's gonna be some power in that. So that's exciting. Thank you for one breaking that with us. Our little podcast over here, getting to get it the exclusive. But um, that's incredible. I love that, and I think you guys have the perfect opportunity for it. I personally think it's a great idea. It makes total sense. So wow, that's
Yeah.
a big undertaking, but I'm pumped. I'm pumped
Mhm.
for you.
Thank you.
I'm
Yeah, you'll
pumped.
come out and see it.
Oh, of course. It's on my bucket list for 2023. I'm not going back to Mexico, so I'm going to try to hit a couple places to tour around. But Tori, it's been so cool to talk to you, and this is like one of my favorite episodes. For anyone who's listening, we're recording in December. This might come out either before January or in January, but super like one of my highlighted episodes for sure.
All right.
Um, I always ask this one question, but I have a new question that I'm going to start asking all my new guests at the end of every episode. First question is an old one that we've asked everyone. If you had one link to send any listener that had one opportunity to learn more about you or anywhere that I've had some guests share their favorite book or whatever it might be. If you had one link to give the audience, what would it be?
Ooh, one link to give the audience.
One link. We'll do more, obviously. I want to
Okay,
link
as a
your Instagram
business
stuff.
owner, I gotta give you boltfarmtreehouse.com, and tell you to come check out our website. Is that shameless plug? But I
Shameless
think
plug.
I know it is. I'm going for the shameless plug. I'm sorry.
No, it's good. I love it. I was gonna do it either way, so I just want to make sure we put that one at the top now. My new question, I've actually stole this from another podcast that's huge and I've become a big fan of. But if you had one question to ask the next guest that's gonna be on the podcast without knowing who they're gonna be, what would that question be?
Ooh, that's so good. So we
Yeah,
don't
I'm
get to
I'm
know who they
excited for this.
are. Okay, one question. Can I give you two? No, I gotta do one. I gotta do one.
We can do a 1.0 and 1 point, or yeah, we'll do option A and B.
Okay, I'm gonna go nerdy business side and say, what are your biggest bottlenecks that you're facing right now? I just think that gives a lot of good insight into someone, like talking about the tough stuff. What are you trying to figure out? What are your biggest bottlenecks? I'm curious, right? And you also never know, maybe you're the person that can help solve it, right? Or someone listening is like, it helps theirs. So what are your biggest bottlenecks? The other one I was toying with was, what's your why? Just that, you got to ask why. That's what we do, for everything. What's your why? And I think that's always a great place to start.
It's one of my favorite questions, so I'm glad you asked it. Definitely we'll do the bottlenecks one. I'll let you know once that episode goes live so you can hear their answer. But Tori, seriously, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. It's been such a pleasure to get to hear your story and a deeper dive outside of what we read or hear and see on TV or Instagram or whatever it might be. So I really appreciate you taking the time today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Of course. All right, Slick Talkers, you heard it here first. Make sure you like and subscribe everything Bolt Farm Treehouse. I'm going to link everything in the show notes below. Comment, follow, like everything that Tori has mentioned, and we'll see you all again next week. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you to our show partners for making Slick Talk, the hospitality podcast, possible. We hope you enjoyed the show, and we would love to connect with you outside of the podcast. So you can follow us on all of our social media channels for daily hospitality content, or find us on slicktalkthepodcast.com. And don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe so you never miss an episode. I'm your host, Will Slickers, and we will see you guys all again next week.